thought process, and the sector started going down, 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 down. That entire roller coaster thing has now once again hopefully come to some sort of balance. And hopefully now this is the time when it has to grow in a stable, not like a roller coaster, but more like grow in a stable way. That's the, if you ask me, the journey of 25 years, because the article, the subject of our seminar is way forward. We cannot look at the way forward until and unless we try to understand what has happened so far. Because I'm not a student of history, I don't even understand history at all. But people say that those who forget history are condemned to repeat it. So I don't want to forget history. I definitely want to understand and learn from what history has been. The sector has some very unique characteristics. The most unique characteristic is the nature of spectrum. How do you explain spectrum? As a telecom engineer, I always used to think, spectrum होता क्या है? हवा है? नहीं, हवा कैसे हो सकती है? वैक्यूम में भी है. Even in space you can have spectrum. So even without हवा, without air, you can have spectrum. तो spectrum को कैसे explain करें? Very difficult. आज यहाँ पे इस equipment ने spectrum use किया है, जैसे ही वो equipment बंद हुआ, any other equipment can use it. Very difficult to explain. So I had a fascination that if I cannot explain a technology to my grandmother, then I have not understood that technology. To be able to explain to a grandmother is the only way one can certify that yes, one has understood the nature. So I thought. Ultimately answer कहाँ मिला? श्रीमद् भगवद गीता में. ये क्या बात है? स्पेक्ट्रम की बात श्रीमद् भगवद गीता में कहाँ से आ गई? How many of you have read श्रीमद् भगवद गीता? कुछ थोड़ा बहुत सुना तो हो कम से कम. गीता में एक कॉन्सेप्ट है आत्मा का. आत्मा अजर है, अमर है, दिखती नहीं है. एक बॉडी में है तब तक उस बॉडी में जान है, और बॉडी से निकल के दूसरी बॉडी में चली गई तो वो बॉडी खत्म हो गई. कभी नष्ट नहीं होती. कितना ही दौड़ा लो, कितना ही 10 जन्म करवा लो, फिर भी आत्मा में कोई खत्म नहीं होता. स्पेक्ट्रम इज लाइक आत्मा, कभी खत्म नहीं होता. आप कोई दूसरा नेचुरल रिसोर्स ले लो, टेक मिनरल्स, टेक हाइड्रोकार्बन्स, टेक वाटर, टेक एनी अदर नेचुरल रिसोर्स, आफ्टर यू यूज इट खत्म. उसका कैरेक्टर तो चेंज हो ही जाता है. It starts diminishing. Minerals, if you use, then the mineral is gone. Hydrocarbons, once you burn the petrol in your car, it's gone. Spectrum is a natural resource which is absolutely undestroyable, completely reusable, and a resource which has no end. It's like Atma. So that's the way I explained to my father. That's the way I explained to myself also. कि है क्या चीज़ ये, बिल्कुल कभी समझ में नहीं आती. So that's a unique character. Being on a serious note, this is a very, very unique natural resource in terms of its utility for the society, in terms of its technical characteristics, in terms of the way the world is moving forward, what it has gone behind and what is going to go forward. The past 25 years, the ills of this sector have been because of spectrum. Most of the problems of this sector have been because of spectrum. So, if we can solve this, if we can solve this one thing, then probably the next 25 years will be a period where telecom sector is stable, where we can say that yes, the Atma is comfortable. That's the first part. The second part of this, second unique characteristic of this sector is highly capital intensive. Highly capital intensive, highly technology intensive. There was a time when if you develop a technology for 25 years, for 15 years, it's a stable technology. आदमी सोचता था कि मैंने ये टेक्नोलॉजी समझ ली है, अब मेरा करियर निकल जाएगा इसमें, ज़्यादा कुछ नहीं करना पड़ेगा। क्या हो गया? World is changed so fast. Today the technology cycle, before you try to understand something new has come. Continuously, like lawyers, continuously when you have to, today there is one case, tomorrow there is another case, you have to keep your mind continuously sharp. And that's a great thing, because you keep getting new information, keep getting new challenges. So that's the way telecom technology cycle is. And it's a consumer facing. अच्छा होगा कोई कुछ नहीं बोलेगा, कितना ही अच्छी सर्विस दे दो, nobody will praise. एक प्रॉब्लम आ गई, एंड इमेजिन मिनिस्टर खराब है, वो कंपनी खराब है, वो डिपार्टमेंट खराब है, इट्स लाइक इट रेन्स लाइक stones and pebbles and everything that comes with it, even if there is a small problem, because it's a consumer facing thing. And consumers, the human psychology is, we tend to value negative things more than what we tend, the way we value the positive things. Actually, one professor got Nobel Prize for this one sentence. Of course, he spent his entire life trying to understand it and prove it in behavioral economics structure, but he got Nobel Prize for it. It's a consumer facing thing. And the fifth unique characteristic is, it's a very spread out infrastructure. If you have a factory, you can manage, there is a controlled area. If you have if you have a mine, you can again control it. You have one ship, you can control it. This thing is spread out all over the terrain, so it's a very, very big challenge. And the last important unique characteristic is, it has now derived strategic importance. 20 years back, 25 years back, when the Act was prepared, the strategic importance thing was not as prominent as it is today. This is the characteristic of the telecom sector. And the post-COVID world has made it even more prominent. The world has changed. The pre-COVID world was different, the post-COVID world is different. Today the world has, as we all know, shifted to digital services. Spectrum and telecom are today seen as public goods, and that is what is driving policy change all over the world. There are countries which have taken the decision to give spectrum for free for new telecom developments. There are countries which are actively thinking that there has to be a very short cycle for spectrum, the life of the spectrum contract, the right to use spectrum, instead of a 20-30 year, can it be made 4 years, and then you think what to do. There are countries which have started giving perpetual licenses for spectrum. So the whole policy discourse is today getting defined by the way the world has changed after COVID. It is today seen as, like air, water, electricity, road, telecom service has to be there. In fact, very recently, in some of the very remote parts of Odisha, I was visiting those areas, and people said कि दाल चावल दे रहे हो अच्छी बात है, लेकिन दाल चावल से ज़्यादा ज़रूरी है हमको टेलीकॉम का टावर दो. That is the kind of demand which has started coming from remotest of the parts of the country. So it has become a very, very important resource and a public good. Simultaneously, the networks are today driven by software rather than by the hardware. Again, a very fundamental change. Virtualization, autonomous networks, these things are becoming a reality. The biggest challenge is cyber security today, because everything is connected through a small device which is sitting in your phone, which can be a major, it can be used as a weapon. It can be used as a weapon. It's a major challenge today. The telecom network, which is between a device and a tower, it's up there, which can be used by the enemies in a very interesting, very different way. So it has got weaponized. So cyber security has come as a major threat today. That's the biggest challenge. Even the countries which were champions of free market, they have decided to impose restrictions which could have never been thought in that kind of society. I wouldn't take any names. Now, this is where the sector has journeyed over the last 25 years. This is where we stand today. These are the unique features of this market. So how are we facing these challenges? How is the government thinking about these challenges? I'll take my next 5 minutes to complete this presentation and share with you how we are thinking about it. The first and foremost defining philosophy of our government is Antyodaya, inclusive development. Development and service of the person at the last rung of the society, in the last step of the society, the poorest of the poor, the marginalized, the people living in the remotest parts of the country, the people who have always been neglected by the dominant forces in the society. Serving those is the motto of our political philosophy. The government, today's government, our government, Prime Minister Modi's government, the dominant philosophy is Antyodaya. We believe in this, we practice in this, day in and day out. All the schemes that are made, all the programs and all the initiatives that are taken are basically for the poor, for the inclusive development of poor, for the inclusive development of the marginalized society. So the fundamental thinking is today, we must make sure that the digital divide narrows down rapidly, because if you don't narrow it down today, then it will be too big to be narrowed in the future, too big to be bridged in the future. Every day a person, a young boy or a girl from a tribal hamlet in Chhattisgarh is deprived of digital service. That girl or boy is getting far behind a boy or girl in Delhi or a metropolitan which has very good service, very good digital accessibility. So that is a conscious thing on which our government is focused as a policy tool, and everything that we will do keeping that goal in the mind. The second defining philosophy is Aatmanirbhar Bharat. We as a country which has some of the best talent, best brains, which are designing the most complex systems in the world for somebody else, why can't we do it for ourselves? Why can't we have our own 4G technology stack, our own 5G technology stack? That's the challenge we have taken, and I must share with you with full humility that the 4G technology stack, the complete core network, the radio network, the entire system has been developed by the Indian brains in record period of just about 14 months at a cost which is a fraction of the cost at which all other systems were developed, just about $30 million US. That's the power of our engineering talent. That's the power of the brains of our own people. So with 4G getting developed, the 5G core network was getting in parallel developed by a consortium of institutions led by IIT Chennai and IIT Kanpur and IIT Bombay. These institutions, together about 11 institutions, IISc Bangalore, all of them combined have today prepared the 5G core which can be bolted onto the 4G developed by CDOT system, CDOT and its associates. That's the journey which makes a fundamental change in the entire telecom sector. Today the world is watching us. The world is talking about it. Why? Because globally, the way other companies, and there are dominant 5 players, those 5 players, they develop technology in a way by which if this hardware is provided by company X, then the software also will be provided by that same company. And which people don't like. People want to have freedom, people want to have choice, people want to have flexibility. So the way our engineers have developed, it's a virtualized system. What does it mean? It means you can buy the hardware from X and software from me and still it will work. You can buy a regular server which is available in this computer and put the software in it and it will still work. So that's the beauty of the system. That's the beauty of the system 4G technology stack and the 5G technology stack that we have developed. That's the power of that system. In technology standards, it is a notch above the existing best in the world. In cost, it is significantly lower. Imagine the power we will get in the global market. So few years down the line, India will become a dominant player as a telecom technology provider, not just a telecom market, but a technology provider, telecom technology provider to the world. That's the thinking, that's the thought process of Modi ji, which has driven the system, which has driven the engineers, inspired the young brains and developed the system. This is the second part. Antyodaya is the first way we are thinking, second is the Aatmanirbhar Bharat. Not only the software, but the entire equipment ecosystem. Today, the telecom equipment manufacturers of India, 35 such manufacturers, are raring to go and export in the world, proving their products in India and taking them to the world. Innovating day in and day out, new patents coming up, new IP rights getting created. That's the force which has been unleashed, and that's the future, the next way forward for the telecom sector. And after many, many years, after many decades, first time in the history of telecom, global telecom fraternity, community, India got a seat on the table, on the main table, when its IP rights, when one of the algorithms it created, it's called the pi by 2 PSK algorithm, that algorithm got included in the 5G standards very recently. That's where the real power comes. How does this change things? The 5 dominant telecoms technology providers, they first set down the standards. It's a global industry. A telecom in India is same as telecom in US, telecom in China is same as telecom in Singapore. So once the standards are set, then everybody has to manufacture, has to develop by those standards. Which means anybody who uses, anybody who produces, anybody who develops pays royalty to those 5. That's the way the telecom industry was getting club of small number of people. We have broken into that. With the first entry into telecom IP rights in the telecom standards, we have made that change, and the result is just yesterday the ITU, the International Telecommunications Union, in their most important study groups for future development of 5G and then over to 6G, most of the important study groups are today chaired by Indian delegates. That's the thought process with which the government is moving forward. It's very important for all of us to know, because when we litigate a case, when we sit on the bench, sit on the judgment, that is the time when we should think, are we doing this purely by the case which is in front of me, or am I able to see the future which is being seen for the country? If we see that and maybe make some adjustments in our legal thinking, I think that will be probably a better service to the nation. That's why it was very important, sir, to kind of discuss in detail, and thank you for giving me extra time. I sought Honorable Justice's permission. I said that you have given 10 minutes, but probably I'll take slightly more, because this is an audience which is intellectual audience, and it's very energizing to interact with this kind of audience. Simultaneously, we have already initiated work on 6G also. As we made very good progress on 4G, 5G, we decided that yes, time to, because we were lagging when it was 2G and 3G. We are trying to catch up when it is 4G. We should at least run together in the 5G, but in 6G we should take the lead. Then otherwise what's the point of being a nation which should tomorrow, which is today being called the talent nation. A talent nation should be thinking in that way, where one takes the lead and actually sets the goal, sets the standard, sets the direction for the whole world. So this is the exciting and challenging way by which we are moving forward. This is the way we are thinking. Another fundamental change we have to make is in the entire regulatory sector. The sector, the potential of this sector got really stymied by the way our entire setup crisscrossed. Nobody to blame, the system is to be blamed. The way system kind of entangled everybody into things, and certain people who didn't have sufficiently strong values, those kind of created a mess by which this sector got such a bad name that some people started calling it the most painful telecom market. So that is what needs to change. And with full humility, a small change was made last September. It has really brought a kind of relief in the entire telecom sector. In fact, if you look at the results, Telecom Tower Commission, which used to take quite some time, sometimes months, sometimes even more than a year, today, if it is a tower outside an aviation setup or outside a defense setup, then as soon as you press your button, you get the permission. It's few seconds, so one feels happy that yes, one could contribute to that kind of change. Many more changes are there, eKYC, many more user-friendly, customer-friendly, industry getting out of that continuous threat of what is the definition of AGR. Will AGR become a big issue on will I get killed because of AGR? So that thought process is today at least out. And we are probably the chalkiness of the water is reduced, but that is nothing in compared to what we need to do. In my personal assessment, if we have to go 100 miles, we have probably gone only 1 mile so far. We need at least 99 more miles to go before we say that yes, there is a good regulatory setup in the country for this sector. Because this sector, as Honorable Justice Chairperson of TDSAT said, everything has converged today. It's a digital world today where the difference between telecom and digital has kind of thinned down significantly, and probably most cases it has vanished. And that's why the practical suggestion you made, sir, I think that's a very practical suggestion. Can we have just one regulator for the entire digital world? So those kind of things are happening. So we need to really overhaul our regulatory setup in terms of the legal structure, in terms of the regulatory execution structure, in terms of the way our government bodies think, in terms of the way our people are trained, in terms of the way we interact with the industry, not as adversaries but as partners. That's the next big challenge. We have to work on it. I don't think we have done enough. We need to do much more than what we have done so far. We will continue to focus on developing the technology stack and adding more and more startups to it, because this is a market which can create future generations of entrepreneurs. This is the technology which can excite our youngsters. This is the technology which can be taken to the global world if we are able to prove it here. We will have laser sharp focus on connecting the unconnected, the inclusive development goal, the Antyodaya goal. We will execute soon on the 5G option, and I thank all the regulators, TRAI, the industry, the TDSAT, the government bodies and the honorable courts for great support in resolving the entire past issues. So today we stand at a level where at least the boat is not moving like this, at least the boat is today stable, it can move forward now. So this is where we stand today. I will seek your guidance, sir, on our future journey. I will seek suggestions from all the members of the bar, members of the industry, members of the associations, members of media, members of judiciary. Please, if you have any ideas, a very open-minded government is there. Please come up with those ideas. You can reach out to Mr. Rajaraman, you can reach out to my office, send out, write in a newspaper. There are instances where people who wrote in newspapers, I call those persons and try to understand in deep what is their thought process, because an article can only be this big, but the thought process behind it can be very big. I have interacted with probably large parts of the industry associations. Lot more to do, but please come up with ideas so that we can make this sector as a sunrise sector. Thank you very much.